I went viral consistently for almost 18 months on LinkedIn because I was just almost ruthless in my LinkedIn writing. There wasn't anything that I was afraid to speak of, which was my own performance review, my company's performance review.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to 5-Minute Founders, the show where we pick the brains of actual founders for the strategies, growth hacks, and stories of how they built their own companies. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and my guest today is the co-founder of Catalyst, the #1 platform for customer-led growth. Kevin Chiu, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Super excited. And yeah, can't wait to dive into all things kind of go-to-market and growth.
Absolutely. So Kevin, why don't we just jump right in? What is your business and what pain points does it solve for?
Yeah, so I run a company called Catalyst. We are effectively a customer data platform that integrates a bunch of different data sources like CRM, email, product data, ticketing, and gives a 360 view for businesses on their customer base and help them analyze who's kind of at risk to cancel their subscription, which is super important for businesses to grow, right? You can't have churn. And then also what signals provided from the data indicate that their customers are ready for kind of an upsell or growth.
I see. And can you just give us a basic definition of what is customer-led growth?
Yeah, so customer-led growth is basically, I would say, a concept that's almost perfectly timed for what's going on in the economic climate right now. So, maybe 24 months ago, right, you would have heard just high-flying unicorns, people growing at, like 100x valuation and billion-dollar companies. And that was really just an investment in a strategy, just growth at all costs, right? Big SDR, AE teams, didn't matter on CAC and payback period. And now it's really about growing efficiently. It's almost just growing through your customers and organically because customers or people in the market don't have as much money to spend on acquisition. Funding's not kind of in the same economic climate that it was before. And so really thinking about how you're extracting kind of key customer lifetime value, maximizing on those metrics, and expanding on your existing base is just far superior of a strategy to grow than always thinking about top of the funnel, which can be very expensive. So that's customer-led growth at a high level.
Definitely. And so customer-led growth and then customer success, correct? I know that you kind of started working in customer success when you were at DigitalOcean. I believe you were working there with your brother, who is your co-founder. And at the time that you were sort of leaving that company and making your next transition, that is when you started Catalyst. I'm wondering what you learned about customer success at DigitalOcean that made you feel like this is the business, this is the step that we should take.
So I'll give you two answers. The real answer is I joined in at DigitalOcean as the sales leader. So frankly, I didn't even think much about customer success. It was my brother, it was my co-founder and CEO. He was running customer success teams all the time. And he felt the pain point really badly when he was there at the organization because they had CRM, they had marketing automation tools, product analytic tools. It was almost impossible for them to understand what was going on with their customer base. So he looked at the market, saw a bunch of different tools, felt like they weren't kind of the right fit for the business for all sorts of different reasons, from implementation, cost, time to value, market feedback. Ended up building something himself with a few team members. They were a very technical, developer-heavy business. So they built that out, ended up powering the entire business. It was effectively purpose-built for that business model relative to what we're building today for a larger market. And I was running the sales organization. So real story is Edward and I were both leaving. He usually had very bad business ideas. We'll save them for another time where we could, if we have call it bloopers section in here, we could talk about that. And he came to me with this idea and I was like, this is the one. So we kind of went after it and it's been a really fun, heartfelt, long 7 years. And it's been learned a lot. Business answer is like, you watch DigitalOcean, they went from 0 to 100 million revenue with no sales team and just pure kind of organic, just exceptional product market fit. And then a land and expand model. And that's been really successful for them.
Gotcha. So just digging a little bit deeper into customer success, what are some of the cornerstones of customer success or some of the most impactful strategies of customer success?
I think the most impactful business strategy in customer success is, thinking a lot about what it means to drive customer value, right? So an example is you take Riverside FM, the podcast thing that we're on right now, and you take Zoom and you take a lot of these other tools. There's like 50 podcast recording tools out there. And ultimately, a lot of them might be dealing with churn because there's so many different options and it becomes a price war. So you really want to manage to how the customer, like what was the value proposition and business outcome that they were trying to get when they bought the product and managing towards that, right? It's not the amount of times that you logged into Riverside FM, which is, I think, allow a lot of businesses manage CS, and really understanding that unique value proposition and measuring towards those outcomes is how you would drive really measured customer success, which I think is a thing that the industry is moving a lot closer towards these days.
It seems like customer success sort of hinges on kind of really figuring out what the customer is suffering from uniquely. So do you have any strategies or kind of ways that you really kind of discover those pain points?
I see. I think it's really good discovery questions. If you're talking about like mid-market enterprise CSM, it's, when you think about a sales process, right? Like if you were evaluating Riverside or podcast solutions for kind of your business, I think a great sales rep, I don't know if you just signed up on your own or if you were talking to a sales rep, but they're going to ask you really good questions on like, hey, like, what are you looking for today? Obviously, you're looking for podcast solution. They're going to dig deeper and be like, well, why, right? Like, what did you use before? Did you use Zoom? Oh, was the quality not good? Like, why wasn't the quality good? What was the impact to the business of that quality not being good? And you guys are now obviously running a super thoughtful process, packaging up a whole kit. Like, it goes through a lot of effort, and we can tell. And I think customer success is not much different in that, right? Really digging deep on like, okay, now that you've bought the product, what are the key things that we need to do to implement successfully towards that strategy? And then checking in throughout that process and understanding, like for a larger business, there might be 6 to 7 stakeholders that are all trying to get some sort of a different piece of value, right? So in the marketing context, you might have the podcast host, but then you might have the VP of marketing. Then you might have the content analyst person who's going to listen to this call and turn it into content articles, distribute to the newsletter. Like there's a whole lot of stakeholders that might benefit from a singular product. And it's really up to a good customer success strategy to understand all the stakeholders in the business who might be involved with the renewal decision process, what they wanted to get from it, and how to drive value and measure that value uniquely across every single stakeholders. And in a large organization, that can be a difficult problem because you have so many people involved above the line, below the line in terms of kind of decision-making influence and power.
Kevin, what would you say constitutes a successful founder?
There's the obvious answers, which we'll talk about, like resilience and, smart and all those things, and got to be charismatic, got to have fundraising, got all these things. Like there's also different types of founders. I have some of the most technical founders who just hit product market fit in my network and couldn't even make it through a live podcast conversation, right? Because they're a bit awkward, but they're super successful. And then you have business founders who might not have technical chops. So I would say the biggest thing is you have that 10x factor. So I've made a bunch of investments in the last year or so, or last 2 years. And what I've realized is, and a lot of this is maybe not even the founder's fault if they didn't make it to the next stage because of, economic climates. Like it's super hard for every business out there. But what you see about the founders that make it is they just have this 10x. They shit that you could do next week, they get it done today. Deals that need to get closed, they get it closed today. They just run through a brick wall with their head first, and they just don't give a shit on what happens. Like they will do whatever it takes to survive, and they get things done super fast. And it's hard to describe. I just call it the 10x factor. It's like this level of hunger. It's killer instinct. And I think the best founders whether they're technical and can't get through a podcast or they're a business sales founder, they just have it. And you just got to look for it, whether you're coming from an investment perspective or you're interviewing for a company, like they just have this sort of quirk about them, right? And you're really looking for that in the most successful people.
Do you feel like that's a quality that's easy to recognize when you're building a founding team? Is there some sort of like consistent characteristic or sort of trait that you can pull from someone when you're talking to them, where you're like, you know what, this is the 10x factor. This is the type of resilience that is going to get this done.
I think you can do your best to manage an interview process to vet that out. But if you know, and you're never perfect. I made wrong decisions all the time for one reason or not, right? Here's an example. You know, one of the best go-to-market people that I've ever worked with was very hard to work with. It's hard to vet that out, and you do your best, and everybody's got strengths and growth areas. And so, you know, what I've learned is having a very thoughtful hiring process of different people interviewing for a specific reason. So not everybody like going in and saying like, oh, tell me about your last job experience and like, why do you want to work here? Like, you need to have a really structured interviewing process. You need to be really good at interviewing. So one of the things that I would almost say I'm like notorious for is like, I will dig like an FBI agent for whatever answer that I'm looking for. So an example is, you know, you could ask someone, what is their greatest weakness? And everyone's going to have some BS answer that they've been working on for the last 20 years. The way I'd ask that question is, I'd say, hey, Matt, like at Jump, do you guys use any sort of performance reviews? And then you'd probably give me the answer, yes. I'd ask, what system is that in? Really make you think. And I'd say like, hey, I think Sean's your manager, right? Okay. And I'd write that down, make sure you know that I'm writing that down. And I'd ask for, who are two other people that know you really well? And then you'd say like, I don't know, content marketing manager or this person. And I'd say, hey, if I message them on LinkedIn today and I know Sean very well, what would he tell me that he wrote down for your performance review? And so like the way I phrase that question and the indication that I'm writing it down makes people feel like I will go get that answer, and I will. And so now you kind of have them thinking about a different answer in the context of a real life scenario. And I will sit there literally all day, like for an hour until this interview's over, until you give me the answer that I'm looking for. So an example is, you know, I was sitting down with someone in product management the other day, and like we were having like a nice wine and dine dinner for a couple of hours, and like you could tell he was buttoned up for this question and was giving me like fluffy answers, and I was like, another one. And then like 4 another ones later, he just cracked, and like I could tell that there was, call it a little bit of maybe ego or, you know, like standards of operating rhythm and how they work. And that's fine for some organizations. And I just didn't know if, like, it's good to know, right? You want to know if someone's going to walk into an organization with high ego, and maybe you're an organization that loves that or has a bunch of people with high ego. So everyone can have that attitude, but knowing what you're looking for in a core set of principles and values and hiring towards that is really critical to minimizing the odds of, you know, not hiring someone amazing.
I love it, Kevin. Thank you. I'm glad that I dug. It sounds like you're really just shaking them out for some authenticity.
Yeah,
Kevin, you've got a really thriving community that you've grown on LinkedIn. I wonder can you give me maybe top 3 strategies to grow on LinkedIn?
There's a bunch, but let me think of the 3. So number 1, I would say be authentic and be different and be yourself. That's just one. So an example is like my LinkedIn is just flooded with these like influencer people who are all ripping each other off with the same content. Like if you go on LinkedIn these days, it's like a hook. And then like there's a thing that says background and then takeaway, and they all bolded with the same format, and they all stole it from the same guy, and I know who that guy is. And I think that guy took my content and copy because I saw him following me a long time ago. So like, it's just, there's no originality to it. And it's hard to build a following. Like people, I mean, I went viral consistently for almost 18 months on LinkedIn because I was just almost ruthless in my LinkedIn writing. Like there wasn't anything that I was afraid to speak of, which was my own performance review, my company's performance review. It just felt like real life, thoughtful, like behind the scenes journalism of a founder. And people loved it. I was unfiltered. And, you know, a lot of people on LinkedIn think too much about people liking them. And I think I eventually found the right tone of don't give a shit and authenticity to where people really liked it. And there's always going to be haters, so there's not much you can deal with that. Second is you got to be consistent. I did it every day obsessively for 3 to 4 hours a day for a year. And it just became part of the business. And the impact of it was brand, recruiting, selling, deals, leads, like honing in on my vision for the business. There was a lot of different things that it did. So, I mean, I think it's become quite obvious to people, especially if you have a customer that is on LinkedIn, like, I don't know, if you sell consumer products, maybe not the best use of your time to write on LinkedIn all day, but if it's a 2 birds, 1 stone, great use of your time. Third thing is format, like hooks and format, and like there's a flow.
Yep.
You know, I write very long form content, and I've managed to figure out how to get people to read and engage on very long posts. And I love it because I love writing with substance. I don't want to write a short one. I like to teach people. And so to figure out how to get people through something that might take them 2 minutes to read on LinkedIn, a social network, it took a lot of iteration. So you really want to think through who your audience is, who you want to be, what do you want them to learn, and structuring that format. Like, general principle is pretend that they read one thing on LinkedIn all day and they scroll past everything else. You got to be that one thing. So your post better be excellent.
Kevin, I have been reading your LinkedIn posts, and I recognize all the qualities that you just sort of listed off there. I can recognize that this is a lot of your personal time that you spend there. I mean, you can definitely tell that this is not a team sort of writing these posts for you. This is a personal thing that you do. When you say you work on it every day, how often are you posting on LinkedIn? How often is most ideal to be posting long form content like that on LinkedIn?
I used to do it 5 times a week. Now I do it. Then it became 3 times a week. Then it became 1 time a week. And now I'm posted in a month or so. It's just, there's just been business priorities that have shifted. And so I've been kind of overseeing product organization, and there's no higher priority than that. So I'm hopeful to get back to LinkedIn posting at some point, but if you're just getting started, 5 days a week, no question about it.
Is there like an area of topics that you sort of have seen make the biggest impact for you or reach the biggest audience?
The one that I got the most likes on ever was a basically teardown of a confidential VC memo. That was like almost 10,000 likes, millions and millions of views. And it was like every day I'd get 60 notifications on my phone of like new people messaging me about it or engaging with it. Then in the thousands of likes, which is still like 250,000, 500,000 views, was another version of teardowns of like companies and their performance and maybe like their quarterly earnings report or something like that. And then on general, if I'm just writing like CS, customer success ones, might get like 300, 500 likes, which is like 100,000, 200,000 views. But it's all very good, right? Those are like going straight to my customer. And almost you would say the more focused ones are the best. Like you go broad for your reach and your volume, but you know, I know lots of people that I think write viral content on LinkedIn that are probably mistaking vanity metrics for like engagement. Like if you got 1,000 likes, but like no deals, and like I would argue that was not very successful. So Catalyst has a lot of pull. Like there's almost no buyer that we can't get in front of because of our LinkedIn go-to-market strategy. And, you know, it's because I have very specific, like I'll have like the chief product officer of a publicly traded organization tell me that like my CS post is like flying around in their executive Slack channel. And like, that's the one that you want. Like they're probably not going to share my Sequoia post, right? Because like, it's just not relevant to the business. It's like a cool thing to read, but you want the ones that are flying around in their Slack channel.
You sort of famously went through kind of 2 of the hardest things in life to do, right? You started a business and you quit drinking simultaneously. I'm curious, from that experience, are there any sort of strategies or advice that you would give to someone who's trying to overcome a personal obstacle or habit in order to create something great in their business life?
You have to, and this sounds cliche, but there's no other way to say it. You have to want it so bad that you are literally willing to die for it. And I would on both fronts. And particularly for the business, there's nothing I wouldn't do for I'd literally die for Catalyst to make sure that it was successful, and the investors and my brother and my family and like all the amazing team members that have poured their heart, soul, blood, sweat, and tears get to see something of that. Like, I believe in that so much. I mean, I have Catalyst tattooed on my leg. Like, I go the whole way. And in the same regards of quitting drinking, I mean, information isn't hard to find out there. So if you listen to podcasts, you probably know like why I quit drinking. But to most people that tell me they're going to quit something like that, I'm like, you probably won't, right? Because, I love throwing parties. I'm the host of the events. I love throwing extravaganzas, but I just do it sober. And I just knew that alcohol wasn't for me. It's, it doesn't sit well with all people for all sorts of reasons. You guys have all seen people who, don't sit good with alcohol or drugs. And like, that was me. And I had always wanted to quit drinking, but like there was just a very, remarkable or unremarkable event you call in 2017 that I was like, holy, like I need to stop drinking and get my life together. And it was kind of life or death for me. And so in both situations, I wanted it so bad that there was nothing else that I wanted more. And it just has to be all or nothing.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate the candor and found your story just to be inspiring and very relatable. So thanks for going there with me. Where can we learn more about you? Maybe about Catalyst or yourself? Follow you on LinkedIn, all those
Follow me on LinkedIn,
platforms.
Kevin Chiu, Catalyst, should be easy to find. And yeah, I post a lot of updates there. So follow me there.
Excellent. Kevin, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, of course.
If you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to follow for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.